Hello, fellow sentient flesh mechs. It's Fluffbyte here. We're coming at you with our first ever not exactly Twitch video. We usually just port off something we talked about on Twitch onto here, but we are taking YouTube as a serious platform, and so we decided we'd make just a little video for y'all this Sunday night, and we wanted to talk about, some of the things to keep positive and negative during the coronavirus right now, because we don't know how long things are going to last, and we're on the eve of some big changes, not just America where we live, but worldwide, maybe, hopefully, for the better. Glass half full kind of attitude we're trying to have right now. So this video is some bittersweet musings to keep you engaged during the corona apocalypse, because honestly this whole reframing of society that us and a lot of other people are hoping for will hopefully start happening soon, and no one really has the answers, really. But when we say bittersweet, we're kind of taking out of our favorite girl from Ducky Ducky Literature Club's toolbox about basically that life is bittersweet, and to appreciate you have to take the negative and the positive and kind of try to strike a balance with it, because things can't be 100% positive all the time, and if you try, hopefully they won't be 100% negative, even despite like really messed up things about being like working class or poor or disabled or a racial minority, or really just one of the undesirables in society that our current oligarchy doesn't really care for, when we've seen that a lot of people count in that huge minority sort of. I mean, thinking about like the 1% protests years ago and how much change we thought was going to happen then, pretty much any time since anyone's saying that, it's kind of like, well, we've seen stuff before, it's not going to change very much. But I mean, everything's in danger now, and because everyone doesn't know what's going to happen, we think that it's actually the best time, and we're not the only people that agree. But something to keep positive in mind, the first thing is Shalisa Manning is out of prison, although she does have like a huge number of fees from every day that she was in prison and refused to testify. She'll probably be in debt for the rest of her life, and I mean, with the kind of thing with the coronavirus, there is online, but social contact is very limited, and she did just get out of like super intense isolation, so I'm pretty sure it is kind of bittersweet for her right now, even to be out of prison and see just how awful the American government is being, although obviously as a whistleblower she kind of knew that something like this could totally happen. Not that has anything to do with why she was in prison in the first place. However, thinking of another amazing great thing that is happening right now despite the pandemic is the fact that Animal Crossing New Horizons came out and everyone loves it. It is like one of the most successful Switch games to ever be released, and honestly, if you go to most social media, you'll see Animal Crossing all over. On our Twitter feed, it's all over. It's intense. Us and our partners actually all have it, and it's great. But there is kind of the fact that it's like the perfect distraction right now, not only from the woes of society, but also from the chance we have to take like real civic action right now. There's like a lot happening, and like it kind of feels like Animal Crossing is like this behemoth of like a simulation that we're all kind of stuck in, and that's a happy simulation. We'll tell you that actually reminds us of this video that talks about why aliens may not have contacted us already, because maybe they have their own Animal Crossing, but like eternally?
An entire species could upload their consciousness and exist in a simulated universe. Potentially, one could experience an eternity of pure ecstasies without ever being bored or sad. A perfect life. If built around a red dwarf, this computer could be powered for up to 10 trillion years. Who would want to conquer the galaxy or make contact with other life forms if this were an option?
And I mean, like, if we are in a situation kind of like Ready Player One, where it's better to be in a virtual world than be, outside in the real one, then, I mean, like, it's pretty telling that, things need to change and the powers that be benefit from us being complacent. Nintendo is still, like, a huge, giant company. Although they're definitely not the worst at treating their workers right now, because of course, another thing to consider right now is GameStop. I'm gonna go with the bad part first, because GameStop is still technically open, and although they deem themselves an essential service and have actually kind of spit in the face of government by saying they're an essential service when they weren't classified as one, and are basically like, yeah, we're still going to be open and we're not going to put really many precautions in place, if at all, to protect workers from the spread of coronavirus. But the good thing is, as of 5 hours before we recorded this, there was breaking news that GameStop won't be letting customers in anymore. So now they just do curbside pickups. So they'll definitely help the current situation, but they still remain to completely close, because they could have just only had the online stuff and shipped to people, but it's still like a GameStop employee is going to run out and hand it to you. So there is that. If Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out on its launch day like it's slated to, then you can totally go to GameStop and get one at danger to your life. Yeah, that's a thing. But again, with all this negativity, there is some positivity. The world is in a lot of unrest right now, and it's kind of hard to imagine things changing, because capitalism has kind of made us feel like there was nothing we could do to change it, and no matter what, even if the world ends, the capitalism will still be the reigning thing. However, American Johnson of Non-Compete was circulating just today a video about how right now is the perfect time for a general labor strike, and some employees of companies are already doing it. And so we're just going to share some of that with you before we head out, so that if you feel like you want to do something even without leaving your home to help what's happening, that you have the chance to, because the more that the working class and everyone who is being subjugated right now bands together, the more we can change the world for the better, and we want to be part of that, which is why we're signal boosting in the first place.
If we all strike, the most vulnerable will be safer. 1. Write an open letter declaring that you and others aren't going to pay. 2. Create an online hub where people and groups can sign on to the letter. Google Forms or Docs is a good way to do this. 3. Share the letter far and wide. A Facebook group called Rent Strike Your City is a good way to reach people. If there's a local mutual aid org on Facebook, ask them to start the group. 4. Set up legal support and coordinate eviction defense in your community. 5. Strike. On March 31st, we all send a letter to every landlord and bank. The end. Of course, it doesn't have to be March 31st. Depends on your circumstances. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good guideline for a rent strike. I'll put a link in the description to a rent strike form letter you can use as a template. Debt striking is another potentially viable strategy. When we're all trying to figure out how we're going to pay for basic life necessities and the world is in chaos, why should we be worrying about credit card bills? The average worker in the USA has less than $1,000 in the bank, lives paycheck to paycheck, and has over $6,000 in credit card debt. That's not even counting the tens of thousands of dollars many of us are straddled with for student debt or medical debt, ironically. The crisis is a perfect time to refuse to pay our debts collectively. If thousands of us refuse to pay our harsh, unjust debts, we will be sending a strong and clear message that we have solidarity in a time of crisis and refuse to be exploited when our lives are in danger. Now is not the time for these giant, wealthy corporations to be profiting off of our debt and interest payments. Debt striking is available to any and every worker and should be strongly considered by each and every one of us, but we have to do it in a coordinated manner to make sure that the debt collecting companies know exactly why we aren't giving in to their cruel demands. And of course, there are many other options available to us. If you have ideas for effective direct actions that we can use against oppression and exploitation during this pandemic, please share them with the world. You can use the hashtags GeneralStrike2020, RedStrike2020, and CareStrike. And there are plenty of other things you can do from home. Make memes, write articles, produce videos to raise awareness and recruit more workers to our movement. Host fundraising drives and live streams to raise money to relieve striking workers and provide mutual aid to people who are suffering. Put together phone zaps to put pressure on politicians and corporate offices. It's time to get creative and come together to present a united front for relief and radical change. Do you have any skills or resources that may be of use to your local community or to the online movement? Do you have a vegetable garden or a van or a truck that can be used to distribute goods? Do you know how to set up a Riot server or a key-based server or do other kinds of online organization? Can you donate money? Do you have a little nest egg you could maybe share with your fellow striking workers? Think carefully and see what you can do or provide to help organize support structures and help your fellow workers. So when does this all begin? Well, for a lot of workers, it already has. We already have workers striking right now. And the sooner we are able to support them and join them in solidarity, the more likely they will be able to have their demands met, and the more likely we're going to be able to grow this into a real movement. So when should you start your first action? It's really up to you and the other members of your group, but the best guidance that we can give you is work to act as soon as possible. Remember, this movement is on the ground floor right now, but it is happening right now. This is your opportunity to help us make history, save lives, and change the world. Things are small and pretty disorganized right now, but this is only the beginning. Act now. Join us now. Do not wait until tomorrow. Let's fight to save our own lives and the lives of our loved ones. If you have any questions or ideas, leave a comment below. And if you're very serious about helping us organize, send an email to generalstrike2020@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible with resources and information about how we can start bringing this movement together.
And so, I hope you got some good information out of that, and hopefully if you have any sort of things you feel like you contribute to the movement, you have a chance to. This is Fluffbyte signing out. Like, comment, and subscribe, please.